Hi ladies and gentlemen, this project was about evaluating the 8mm penetrometer plunger to determine harvest maturity on plum. As an introduction, in other plum producing and importing countries, penetrometers fitted with 8mm plungers are used to determine flesh firmness. It was requested that the 8mm plunger also be tested with the view to replace the 11.2mm plunger for use on plums. This would contribute to standardizing the method for determining flesh firmness and interpreting flesh firmness figures received from overseas. The objective was to establish if an 8mm plunger can accurately determine flesh firmness as a harvest maturity parameter and also as an indicator of flesh firmness of plums after arrival in the market. Flesh firmness was determined with penetrometer plungers of 8mm and 11.2mm diameters on the following plums. We used Fortune, Letitia and African Delights. The firmness was determined at harvest, after cold storage and after shelf life as follows. One sample was used with the 8mm plunger on the one cheek and the 11mm on the other cheek. Then a second sample was used to do the 8mm plunger on both cheeks, and the third sample was used with 11.2mm plunger on both cheeks. Fruit quality was determined at start of shelf and end of shelf without stats. As a result, you can see the Fortune with the 8mm versus the 11.2mm penetrometer plunger. The orange values are at harvest, the pink are at start of shelf, and the blue is at end of shelf. And the Y value is a conversion value, and that's roughly at 1.7 for the Fortune. If we look at the results for the Letitia, this is where you look at the 8 versus the 8mm plunger tip. You can also see the orange is at harvest, the pink is at start of shelf, and the blue is at end of shelf. Also quite good linear lines, and you can see the conversion value is roughly at 1 plus minus. So that just shows there's no big differences between cheeks. As a conclusion, the three cultivars tested exhibited slight variations in the regressions comparing the 8mm and the 11.2mm plunger at the three evaluations. On average, the conversion factors varied between 1.72 for Fortune, 1.8 for Letitia, and 1.66 for African Delight. The average across cultivars was 1.73, which is similar to the 1.76 of the 2019 results and comparable to the conversion factor of 1.8 that was previously established for nectarines. The conversion factor between the 8mm and 11mm plunger with regards to flesh firmness readings, that was on both cheeks per fruit with the same penetrometer, were plus minus 1. So that means that there were no real differences between cheeks when measured with the same penetrometer. I just want to thank you all for funding and continued support, and all staff at Experico for their inputs and assistance.